No. All right, so the first thing that you'll do when you're teaching a class is you'll want to sign in. So let's say at this point you have signed in, you've signed in to teach a class, you've signed up for a class, and or you're just kind of wanting to look at the materials and prepare to teach a class. You'll start by signing into your volunteer account. Now, first things first, it's really important. And then for those of you who maybe have been a volunteer for a while, you'll know or recognize that we are no longer using the financialbeginnings.org site. Now, you can go into financialbeginnings.org. And if you go in that way, you'll want to click Learn More About Your State and click on Oregon. This is really important. If you log into just the normal Financial Beginnings site, you're actually logging into the national site, which is going to be different than the Oregon site. So it's really important that you do get into the Oregon site. You'll know you're in the Oregon site because it'll say Financial Beginnings Oregon on the top left. Now, if you're a volunteer, that is a volunteer in Washington and in Oregon, you can actually log in both. So if you're, a Vancouver volunteer or something, you can actually log into either site and you'll get to see all counties, all the counties that you have said you want to volunteer in. So again, on this site, you'll see that it says Financial Beginnings Washington. So that's how you know you're in the right place. So we're on our Financial Beginnings Oregon website. And just to give you all heads up, the website does work best with Chrome. Chrome really does function the best. If you have any issues on any other browsers, let me know, ping me, shoot me an email, say, hey, I'm having a problem. It should work on all other browsers, but we just have seen that it does work best in Chrome. So if you can use Chrome, I definitely recommend it. So you'll go ahead and use the login that you created when you first took the training. If you have not been through the training and don't have this information yet, do not fret. You will get it when you go through the training. Just use your password. So you'll use your login, your username and password, and you'll have full access to our site. If you volunteered, if you've been trained, if you got trained a while ago, you might have to do a volunteer recommitment. But if you've been trained in the last 6 months, then you don't need to go through that because you just got trained, so you won't need to do that. And so all of our materials are housed under this blue volunteer box under classroom materials. So we'll go ahead and click on classroom materials and we'll scroll down to the foundations banking materials. And for the banking class, there are 4 different pieces. There's the resource guide. This is the guide that the students will receive. So all of the students will already have this guide. And that's one of the really great parts about it is that we will send this for you. So whether it's a class that you've signed up through us, where you have gone in through the Find a Class and you have, looked through classes and you have signed in that way, or if you have gone in through your dashboard and found classes that way, there's lots of classes that need volunteers right now. We are hit the ground running with the school year, and teachers were super excited. So we already have tons of classes to sign up for, both at high schools as well as local homeless shelters and other types of organizations and institutions. So if you want to take a second to look at all the opportunities that are available, including opportunities that are this week that we need volunteers, you can go ahead and look there. But so you've signed up for the class day, or let's say you're just kind of wanting to look at the materials and kind of prepare. You have that resource guide, which again will be sent to the students, whether it's a class that we have signed up, or if it's an organization or school that you have a connection with already and want to use our resources and use our programs and teach this. We love it when people do that. All we ask is that you give us heads up so we can make sure to mail the resource guide to the students. They will all get their own copy, and that's it looks a little something like this. You do not have to log into Box to view this. There will be an option to log in, or if you're already logged in, to go to your account. You don't have to log in. Anyone has access to this site. Then you have your presenter's guide. This is the most important tool in your toolkit. This presenter's guide walks you through how to teach the class step by step. It's really important. Then you have the PowerPoint presentation. I would say this is the second most important tool that you have in your toolkit. Now, really the PowerPoint's a great tool to have, because we really do want to, hit students at every level. So some students are visual learners, some students are audio learners, some students want to see it in front of them or want to write things down. So we really want to try to give them every piece of that. So whenever possible, we really do ask that you use the PowerPoint. However, in some cases, especially at, for example, local correctional facilities, we don't have the ability to use the PowerPoint. And in that case, it's okay. You have your presenter's guide. They all have their resource guide. And really, those are the most important pieces. But whenever you can or are able to, I really, really do recommend that you use the PowerPoint. And then finally, for the banking class, there is an additional activity. There's the identity theft activity. So we will send the students copies of this, but we'll give you a copy so you can kind of see and look at it. So for now, I'm going to download 3 things. I'm going to download the presenter's guide, the PowerPoint, and the student guide. So we can kind of flip through each of these pieces. And when I go into the classroom, I do 3 things. First thing I do is I actually print a hard copy of this presenter's guide. Now, if you need one from us, we can definitely make sure that we can give you a hard copy. We can send you a hard copy of anything. So if you don't have access to a printer, or if you don't have the ability to print, no worries. We can definitely print that for you so you have a copy. Again, the student guide, you have a copy of it so you can kind of see how your guide works with and kind of next to their guide. And then the third thing, but you don't need to worry about printing a bunch of copies or making sure you have these for the students. The students will have these already. We'll already send them. And then the third piece, again, is the PowerPoint. So we're going to go ahead and download all 3 of those pieces. Oops, I already downloaded that. Okay. We'll go ahead and download all 3 of those pieces, and I'm going to open them up. One of the things that I really recommend doing is when I go and teach into a class, I bring this PowerPoint on a flash drive. I email it to myself, and I email it to the teacher. So I bring it in all kinds of different ways with me. So in case there's any technical difficulties at all, I have my PowerPoint and I have what I need. So I bring it on a flash drive, email it to myself, and I email it to the teacher in advance. Another thing that I like to do as well is I like to print myself a copy of the notes view. This is really helpful just to have the notes in front of you. All of our slides have speaker's notes embedded in them, which is really convenient. And so I like to print a copy so I can see where I'm supposed to be and those notes at any given time. And so if for any reason there's a technical difficulty and the slides aren't working or whatever, I have this with me. So we're going to go ahead and open all these pieces. We're going to open up the PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead. I saved those to my desktop. I'm going to open up this is the student guide, and then I'm going to open up the presenter's guide. And the difference is really, really mild. Just on the front, it'll say presenter's guide versus student guide. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a presenter's view. A presenter's view is fantastic because the presenter's view is when you're teaching and you have it, most of the schools have a setup where it has, they have a PowerPoint ready to go. They have a computer set up, plugged into some sort of projector. And when you are using your PowerPoint, if you're using this view, the cool thing is that the students only see the slide on the left. You see the big picture. You see the slide that's coming up next. You see the notes. You see everything else. Another thing that I think is great and just something to know and kind of keep in mind is that when you actually sign up for a class, they'll tell you right off the bat whether or not there's the ability to project a PowerPoint. So for example, if we're looking here at the dashboard, classes available, there's an investing class. You'll see here, it'll say on-site projector. Classroom has the ability to project PowerPoint, yes or no. So it'll tell you right away whether or not they have the ability to project a PowerPoint. And when you get connected to the class. So let's say right when you sign up, you'll be connected to this teacher, and it'll say in the connection email, hi, Teresa's coming to teach your class. She's going to be bringing a PowerPoint. What's the best way for her to bring the PowerPoint? And the teacher will email back usually and say, oh, that's great. Email it to me or bring it on a flash drive. Again, I bring it in all three ways, no matter what, because I just think it's really important to be extra prepared in case something goes wrong. So we have here our PowerPoint, and we have here our presenter's guide. So I'm going to go ahead and be looking at both, and I'm going to be kind of flipping back and forward from one to the other to kind of show you how these things mesh together. And then we also have here the student guide. So whenever we want to kind of look at the student guide and see what the student guide looks like, we can refer to that as well. So the presenter's guide starts off with basic mission and vision of Financial Beginnings, a little bit of information about the Foundations program, a little bit about the different tools and resources that are available to you, and then jumps right into a table of contents. So an overview and timeline, and then breaks down each of the lessons. So then there's a little bit more about all the different tools that are available to you. You have the volunteer website, resource guides, the PowerPoint slides, the presenter's guide, and then there's also a whole round of tutorials that I'll show you how to access towards the end of this, towards the end of our chat. Then you have here the kind of little overview of banking and why banking is important, and also the objectives of the class. And you'll notice that these objectives here match the objectives in the student guide on page 1. So these are the session objectives, and it also matches the objectives slide. So there will be always a slide on all of our PowerPoints that say, what are we doing here today? And it will list those things out. Then we'll get into the overview and timeline. And the overview and timeline is really helpful because it breaks down each activity and how much time you should spend on that activity, the objective of the activity, and the summary. So you'll have, you'll have a nice little overview and timeline of how much time you should spend. So that way, if you are teaching one of these classes that you'll notice in that one I was just in, it said, for example, it says abbreviated. That means that this isn't a full hour and a half class, so you have less time. You'll notice that this is only an hour class instead of an hour and a half. And while we always try our best to make sure that teachers use the full hour and a half, they don't always do that. So we want to make it work with the teacher. So if you know that you have an hour instead of an hour and a half, you can take a look at these different pieces and figure out, okay, where do I need to cut the time? And where do I need that extra 30 minutes? And where can I remove things? Where can I change things around? So we'll start off with the icebreaker. And the icebreaker is really important. No matter what class you're teaching, you have to kick it off with an icebreaker. The objective of the icebreaker is to introduce the topic and encourage classroom discussion, which is really critical. It just really just starts off really, it's kind of how the tone of the lesson is going to be, is really, driven by this icebreaker. So you want to kick it off with a personal story about yourself, who you are, why you're there, why you're passionate about this, maybe a little personal story about, banking or money and why it's important to you and your experience with it. Students really love hearing about the ways in life that we have maybe screwed up or have done things, maybe quote unquote wrong, and they really do learn from those things. So the icebreaker is really critical. You'll see here that there's in every piece, in every one of these little breakdowns, there's going to be 3 pieces. There's the resource guide, which is the page that the students will be referred to. There are the slides. So these are the slides that you should be on in this part of the lesson. And then here is the discussion. So when you're kicking this off, you'll start off with, a little bit about yourself. And again, it says participants here love hearing about personal experiences of their presenters, especially when those stories talk about mistakes made. They love hearing about the ways they screwed up in life. So here's some ideas for ways to kick off a banking discussion. Do you remember when you opened your first bank account, or a time when you overdrew your bank account, or how you learned the ins and outs of banking account? The banking PowerPoint slide starts off with a basic question of what is banking. This is a great opportunity to start your discussion with participants and find out what their experiences are. So this is really critical. The banking curriculum that we use for adults is the same as the banking curriculum that we use for high school students. The reality is the baseline curriculum doesn't need to be that different. What needs to be different and what varies are the experiences that you share, the examples that you use, the types of stories you tell. They might change and vary depending on your audience. So any opportunity you have to learn about your audience is really critical, because if you're teaching this in a high school class, their answer to what is banking is going to be very different than whether or not you're teaching this to a group of adults who are maybe, have experienced incarceration or homelessness, or, we do a lot of work with, staff members of local organizations that we work with. We provide the programs for both their staff and for their participants, because both of them really want to learn more about this. So it's a really great opportunity for you to learn where their baseline is. When introducing the topic of banking, it's really helpful to also distinguish between banking as a verb and a noun. And you can explain to participants that when talking about banking, you're referring to both banks and credit unions, and that the verb is different from the noun. So here are the slides to the banking presentation. Kicks it off with just a title slide, and it'll say here, take the time to introduce yourself, including who you work for and the details of your job. If you're not working, then share with them why you're passionate about teaching them about banking. This is the opportunity in this little title slide to tell a personal story. Then you'll move on to what is banking. Start the conversation with asking the students, what is banking? This is a great opportunity to start your discussion and find out what their experiences are surrounding banking and what they know and what their baseline is. And then you'll go ahead and move on to just kind of giving them that reminder of the difference between banking as a verb versus a noun. So banking is the verb for when you interact with a bank or a credit union. When we refer to a bank, it includes a bank, credit union, or savings and loan institution. And we will go more into the difference between a bank and a credit union later on. Then you'll refer the students to their objectives. And again, if you recall, we said here that you'll refer students to page 1. So if you want, you can have the students read the objectives. They have it in their student guide here. There are the objectives, and these are listed right here on page 1 of their guide. So you can ask them, okay, who wants to read the objectives? And they can read them directly from their guide, or they can read them from the slide that's above. So it's a really great way. Anytime you can get kids involved, or participants, whether they're kids or adults, anytime you can get them involved in some way and engage them in some way is great. So even if that means little things like, who wants to read objective number 1? Who wants to read objective number 2? That's a great way to do it. So we'll go back here to our presenter's guide, and you'll see here that we went through those 3 slides. So now we're on to the next lesson. Next lesson is a lesson on banking. You should spend 10 minutes on this. And the objective of this is to understand the different types of financial institutions. The pages that we'll be referring the students to are pages 2 to 3. What is money? What is a bank or credit union account? Why is it important to have a bank or credit union account? And choosing a bank or credit union. You'll also be referring them to page 2 of the resource guide, which is a little activity on what are the different reasons to maintain a bank or credit union account. And here are a couple appendices we're going to be referring them to, and then an activity. The slides that you'll be using are what is money, banks and credit unions, the banking process, why you use a bank or credit union, how to compare financial institutions, and then the account A, B, and C comparison. And then here's the discussion. And the discussion part is really where you can follow along with the PowerPoint. And anything that's in a thought bubble is something that I really encourage you to ask the students out loud. So we'll start off first by just asking them, what is money? And really ask them this question, what is money? What is money? So money is anything that members of a community accept in exchange for goods or services. It's a medium of exchange, a measure of value, and a store of value. And you'll be really interested to hear the kinds of things that people, when you ask students what is money, like what they say. It's really interesting giving them time to say that. So then you can kind of go into the different pieces of what money needs to be. Money needs to be durable. It doesn't easily break. It needs to be transportable. It can be moved easily, dividable, can be broken down into smaller amounts, and hard to counterfeit. Can't easily be duplicated. Provide examples of some currency that has been used. So, for example, ask the students in the form of currency. Is it durable, transportable, dividable? So you can go into different options. So cows, back when we used trading and bartering as a type of money, people used cows as a type of money. Is that durable, transportable, dividable, hard to counterfeit? What about shells? Cowrie shells is the most widely and longest used form of money and currency. So you could ask them, is that durable? Is that transportable? Is it dividable? Is it hard to counterfeit? Gold used to be that all paper notes were backed by actual gold. And then in 1933, the United States moved away from the gold standard. You can ask them, is that durable? Yeah, it's durable. Is it transportable? Not easily transportable. Is it dividable? Not easily. We've seen that it's easy to counterfeit as well. And then currency today. What are we doing today? What is currency today? And we're continually updating our currency to try to prevent against counterfeit. So where do you think currency is headed? In the digital age, do you think our currency will stay how it is now? And this is really where you'll hear students talk about Bitcoin. You'll already hear students, even in younger grades, talk about Bitcoin and where currency is moving, and some of them want to know about Bitcoin. So some fun trivia that you can say to them. The United States may discontinue making pennies and nickels because it costs 2 cents to make a penny and 8 cents to make a nickel. So it actually costs more than it's worth. If you have different forms of currency or old U.S. currency, it's great to bring these in to show them. So if you have stuff you want to show the students, it's great to show them like old money and all of that. So, when you ask them what is money, it's these are the 3 pieces. But before you show them that, ask them what they think first. So then you'll go into banks and credit unions. So you'll explain to participants the differences and similarities between banks and credit unions and why it's important to have a bank account. Refer students to the bottom of page 2 and ask them to take a few minutes to fill in some of the reasons to maintain a bank or credit union account. Ask participants to share their answers and lead a discussion on the benefits of having a bank account. Walk participants through the banking process and explain how banks uses their funds and the security you are providing them through the Federal Reserve and the National Credit Union Share Insurance Fund. So when you put your money into a bank, you can ask them these questions. Do they just safely store it in the vault for you until you need it? And the ultimate answer is no, they don't. So if they've lent out your money, how do they know you'll get it back? So this is the slide that you'll be using to walk them through this. The differences between banks and credit unions. You can walk them through each of these and the differences, and telling them and reminding them that, it's all about picking the institution that's right for them. So in some cases, a bank might be a better fit for their situation. In some cases, it might be a credit union. In some cases, and for many folks, it's both. And you can talk about how each is great to have and in different reasons, and why one might be, better for some things versus another might be better for other things. So, you're going off to college and you're just starting out. You want to make sure to have an institution that's really close by your college next year, or you want to make sure to pick a credit union that is in your neighborhood, or if you're going to be buying a house, picking a bank or credit union that has the best fees, and just kind of explaining to them the different pieces of both a bank and a credit union. So all of our bank and credit union employees, even if you work for one or the other, it's really important to talk about both and how both are important in the banking process. So then you'll go ahead and talk about, banking. So when we're young, many of us are introduced to banking and we're pointed out a vault in which held our money. So you ask them, when you put your money into the bank, do they safely store it in the vault until you need it? No, they'll actually utilize the funds to lend out to other people to buy cars, houses, or other things. The bank will pay a small interest percentage to you for keeping your money in the bank and allowing them to, in turn, lending it out to someone else for a higher rate. This is one of the ways they make money to operate their business. And then they'll ask, okay, but if they've lent out your money, how do you know you'll get it back? And you can explain that both banks and credit unions are regulated to ensure that your money is safe. You're insured up to $250,000 at each bank or credit union. So if you have more money in this account, you may consider diversifying by putting anything over $250,000 into another bank or credit union. And then you can explain the difference between the FDIC and the National Credit Union Share Insurance Fund, and just explain that both credit unions and banks are backed by different institutions and what those are called. So then the why use a bank of credit union. And this is where you'll refer students to the bottom of page 2 and ask them to take a few minutes to fill out some of the reasons to maintain a bank or credit union account. Ask students to share their answers and then lead discussion. So here are some examples we've given you, but I would wait until the students do theirs first before sharing. So have them, okay, go ahead and go to page 2 and just jot down some reasons why you would maintain a bank or credit union account. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to find out what their baseline is and what their knowledge base is. So you can kind of figure out, what kind of examples should they be using for them? How much knowledge do they already have? Is their knowledge base pretty elementary? Are they, freshmen in high schools? Maybe they'd have no idea the different reasons. Or maybe they're adults and maybe it's a little bit more advanced. So you can kind of use this again as another opportunity to gauge your audience. So ask them to take a minute to fill this out, and then ask them to share with you. And then you can lead them in a discussion to some of these other reasons. Maybe they didn't say these things. It keeps your money safe. It can provide proof that you paid a bill. It can make it easier to track your money. It allows you to build a relationship with a financial institution, which can help you build your credit score. It can allow you to save money on check cashing or money orders, and then any other reason that you can sample or think of. And any personal stories that you have that have to do with this, you can explain. So why don't we just keep our money in a mattress? Well, under a mattress, well, what if someone comes in and robs your house? Well, they could easily find it and steal it. When if it's in a bank or credit union, it's much more difficult to do that. So you can kind of walk them through those pieces. Then you want to go through the comparison. So how to compare different financial institutions. So you want to compare those by offering what benefits does the financial institution offer? Is there a minimum balance requirement? Will they waive monthly fees? Are there higher interest rates on savings or lower interest rates on loans? What about different policies and fees? What about the cost of overdrafting? Is there a monthly fee? If not, how much? Is there a way to avoid the fee? Are there fees associated with falling below a minimum balance? What kind of accessibility do they offer? Where are they located? How many locations are there? Is there online banking? Are there convenient ATM locations? And what is important to you? Student discounts, locations, hours of operation, fees, online or mobile banking. These are things that you can tell the participants that they need to think about when thinking about what financial institution is right for them. Are they making a big purchase soon, like buying a house or a car? That might be the fees. That might be more important to them, or interest rates. That might be more important to them on those things. But then you might think, okay, what about students who are seniors who are going off to college next year? For them, it might be a location or the ability to have easily transferable money between their parents' account if they need help, or their account. So that's something that they might think about. So this is in this section here, which is just, again, choosing a bank or credit union. So you can refer participants to Appendix A, which is on page 9, to show them common questions they should ask when opening an account. So you'll see here, this is the next part, which we'll refer to. There are 3 different types of accounts. Which would be best for someone that kept a low balance and is a total techie? Or what about someone who has a paycheck direct deposit and they like to speak to a real person when they bank? Or someone who just wanted the best interest return on their money? So we have 2 different resources here. One is on page 10, which is the bank account review, which you can refer students to this and have them either complete on their own time or homework. It allows them to compare checking or savings accounts from different institutions. And then page 11, which allows them to go through the activity of Monica and Sarah. So let's go ahead and then there was also referring students to page 9, which are common questions. So let's go look at those 3 pages. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and go to page 9. Choosing a bank or credit union. So page 9, this is something that you can refer to them and saying, look, this is a great appendix and tool that you can take with you into a bank or credit union and compare two different institutions. Tell them to pick one bank and one credit union and ask them these questions. Do you have a free account with no monthly maintenance fee? What are the requirements for a free account? If you like the bank's free account option, you can skip to number 6. If you have, do you offer a low cost or lifeline basic account? What are the requirements for that? And what is the monthly service fee? How much do I have to keep into the account to avoid a monthly fee? How much money do I need to open an account right away? How many checks can I write in each month without an additional fee? How many withdrawals can I make without an additional fee? Does an ATM or debit card come with this account? How much is the fee to use my card at another institution? Do you offer overdraft protection? Is it linked to an account, savings, credit, or savings, credit card, or line of credit? Then here's the bank account review. So you can ask them if they already have a bank account, what bank or credit union do they already hold an account at? If you have accounts at multiple institutions, why? How long have you had your account at the institution? What were your reasons for changing the institution? And then they can use the table below to do a review. Then look up to other institutions, one at a bank and one at a credit union, and compare. So this is for people who maybe don't have a bank or credit union yet, and how to choose one. Maybe this is for adults who have had a bank account or a bank or a credit union. I mean, I remember when I got my first bank, I just got it at the bank that my dad had the account. And I had my bank account with them for years and years and years before I finally reconsidered my banking options and realized that there was a better option for me. And this tool is really helpful for them because it can make them see, oh, here's your account, and then here are two comparisons, one at a bank and one at a credit union, to maybe see, what did you learn from this comparison? Did you learn that maybe, wow, I'm paying a monthly fee every month, and I found a credit union or a bank that allows me to have no monthly fee or more interest earned or whatever. So then here's an activity that you can do with them. Sarah and Monica are two friends that have just started working at the same job at the mall. Both girls make $300 a week, and since they're best friends, they often spend the same amount. Both girls have an expensive week coming up with $215 in expenses. Each girl wants to open a bank account. After shopping around, Monica found one account and Sarah found a different one. Both are with local banks. The banks have plenty of locations and ATMs. They even have Saturday hours, but the girls are not sure which account is best for them. Both accounts come with ATM, debit cards, free transactions at bank and ATMs, and unlimited teller transactions. And one is account A and one is account B. Subtract from the fees from each account into the initial deposit, and then subtract the expenses. Find out which account is better for Monica and Sarah. Don't forget to account any fees that the girls may incur. Account A has been started for you. So they'll start out with their credit of $300, and then you'll subtract the different fees. So again, you'll see here that these have already been subtracted for them, and you'll do the same for account B, and you'll have your ending balance. So you can help them to determine which is better. So then you'll go ahead and utilize, again, and you can have them just do each of these. And participants should explore what benefits the financial institution offers, what kinds of fees or policies they have, what kind of accessibility they offer, and what is really important to the person. So you can ask them, okay, in this example, if someone is a total techie and keeps a low balance always, what would be the best for them? Account A, account B, or account C. Someone has their paycheck direct deposited and likes to speak with a real person when they bank. Is it A, B, or C? And someone who just wanted the best interest return on their money, which would be the best one for them, A, B, or C. And you can walk them through those pieces. So those might be some things that you can discuss with them, and you can figure out, okay, why do you think A is best for person A? Okay, well, here's why. So, and then here are the different activities that we just walked through. And then we move into the second lesson of banking, which you're going to spend 30 minutes on. The objective is to understand the different types of accounts and how to open an account. You'll be referring them to the students to pages 2, 3, and 4. Page 4 of the resource guides provides an example showing the difference between simple and compound interest. And then these are the different slides that you'll refer them. And then this is the discussion. So starting with opening an account. So let's go ahead and take a look at this slide. So if you're going to go and open an account, these are the things that you'll need. And you'll see here, and you can kind of ask them, okay, let participants know that when they go and open an account, they'll need photo identification, another form of identification like credit card, or oftentimes, a student ID will work, proof of address, so, piece of mail, social security number, and then, of course, money. Lead participants through a discussion explaining the differences between checking and savings accounts. Cover such aspects as how to withdraw money, what interest is, and different ways to use accounts. So ask them, how many of you have a savings account? How many of you have a checking account? How many of you have both? Who knows the difference? Maybe you'll ask that question to younger students. Who knows the difference between savings and checking account? And make sure they understand what those differences are before you kind of move on with them. Then you have, and this is what the slide looks like. So you have checking versus savings. Then you'll walk through a basic understanding of what interest is. So how is interest calculated? Explain to them what APR is and how interest is calculated. Participants should understand that even though APR is what is commonly quoted, usually the compounding period is more frequent, like quarterly, monthly, or daily. So you can ask them, do you know how much interest you're receiving on your savings account? How often are you paid interest on your savings account? Explain to participants in order to calculate interest that is compounded monthly, they have to divide by 12. So here's an example, and you can walk them through that. 1% divided by 12 months is 0.08 monthly. So the example on the slide assumes a 1% APR compounded monthly. Explain to participants the difference between simple and compound interest. Get participants excited about compound interest. So simple interest is interest paid or earned only on the principal amount. But compound interest is interest earned or paid on a principal and accrued interest. So page 4 of the resource guide and the PowerPoint slide provide an example showing the difference between simple and compound interest. So let's go ahead and take a look. So simple versus compound interest. You'll look at here. So we'll tell them, okay, simple interest is interest paid or earned only on the principal amount. Compound is interest earned on principal and accrued interest. And this example is based on the figures of page 4 of the resource guide. It is comparing $100 at 5% calculated with simple versus compound interest. So let's go ahead and take a look at that on page 4. So this actually shows them the compound and simple interest formulas. And note that interest can be earned as well as paid out, and explain to them the difference between those two things. And then go ahead and show them the difference between, okay, so if you deposit $100 in a savings account and earn 5% APR for the next 20 years, assuming interest is only paid once a year, let's compute the difference between simple and compound. So in the case of the simple, you're only accruing interest on that principal. If you're having the compound, you have the principal plus the compound interest. And you'll see that that accrues more heavily over the course of 20 years in the case of compound versus simple. And then you have the slide to show them a visual way of the difference. So just something to kind of walk them through and show them. Other kinds of accounts and services. What other accounts or services do banks provide? So as participants bring up accounts and services they're aware of, lead a discussion about these services and covering both the advantages and disadvantages they may provide. So in addition to what participants answer, make sure to cover online banking, overdraft protection, certificate of deposit, a safe deposit box, mobile banking. And then you can go ahead and walk them through this. There's a slide that actually has these pieces. So and you can walk them through what each of these things are. So here's the, safety deposit box. What is that? Mobile banking. What is that? Some you might want to spend more time on than others. It's up to you. You can realize that they know a lot about mobile banking. You don't need to sit there and walk them through all the different things of mobile banking, but maybe they never heard of a safety deposit box. And you'll see in different age groups, there's different knowledge base on each one. So a group of high school students are going to, again, have a different knowledge base than a group of adults. So you can kind of walk them through a little bit, APY versus APR. What is APY? What does that mean? These terms are often confused. And again, if you think that this is going to go over, your students' heads, you don't need to go over this. But if you think that it will be beneficial, you can go over with them. So then you have the third lesson, which is a 10-minute lesson on how to best manage a bank account and handle issues as they come up. So you have a couple different pages here you can refer them to. And then here are the different slides. This is where you'll be doing the activity theft activity. This activity can be found under course materials, which we downloaded earlier. So we'll go ahead and grab that now. So the identity theft activity is right here. We downloaded it earlier, and all the students will already have a copy of this. So we'll go ahead and keep this on side. So, all right, so managing your accounts. Stress the importance of managing your account responsibly. It is important to watch a bank account in order to help identify any errors, catch any unauthorized charges, prevent identity theft, and track spending habits. So there's a slide on that. The responsibility is yours. You have a responsibility to ensure that you maintain your accounts. It's important to watch your account in order to help identify errors, catch unauthorized charges, prevent identity theft, and track spending habits. If you do find that you have a problem with your bank or account, you should contact your bank ASAP to help with the problem. Write down the name of the person that helped you, offer a solution, and ask the bank to help correct the problem. Do not lose your temper. And if you are not satisfied with the solution, write a letter or ask to speak to a manager, summarizing the situation and what you would like to happen. Here are some ways to manage your account. You have online banking, spreadsheets, accounting software, online programs such as Mint, register. The classic check register is still a very powerful tool, even if you do not write checks. Still a great way to look through those things. So that's something that you can walk them through. Really great question when you're asking them about managing their bank. Can you believe your account balance when looking at it online? Most students will be really surprised to hear that the answer to this question is no. Do not always believe the balance when you're looking at it online. Why not? Well, there might be automatic bill pays that haven't come out or that are scheduled to come out. There might be checks that have been written that haven't come out yet. There might be tips that you had added to a charge that you made in a restaurant, for example, and you haven't and you maybe haven't had the opportunity to, that hasn't come out yet. So it's easier, but just it's easier now with the speed of technology and how fast things are processing, but just stress the important that it's really important and it's their responsibility to keep track of their very, very available balance to ensure that their account is not overdrawn. So their current balance plus outstanding deposits, subtract outstanding purchases, that's their available balance. So here's a little key here, and you can walk them through what those are. So what are outstanding deposits? What are outstanding purchases? Some purchases still require a check, can take time for that check to clear. It's important to take that into account when you're looking at your account balance. Keeping track of your available balance will ensure that you do not overdraw your account. Many bank accounts will provide you with tools to watch your balance, like sending you texts or emails when your account balance falls below a specific amount. Then you'll walk them through ways to avoid fees. And before you even move to this slide on avoiding fees, ask them, what are some ways to avoid bank fees? And let's see what they say, see where they're at. One of the goals of this lesson is to help participants avoid any fees. Lead a discussion with participants on how to avoid fees, cover aspects such as saving on ATM fees, making sure they go to an ATM. If they are using a bank, that is that bank, or if they're using a credit union, oftentimes credit unions have kind of paired up with other credit union institutions, and just make sure that they are finding ATMs that will not accrue a fee. Keeping track of their spending, setting up direct deposit, and asking for the occasional fee reversal. And explain to them that might not always work, but that can sometimes help out. And here is again more information. If you overdraft your account and have never done it before, many times they will reverse for your fee as the courtesy. It doesn't hurt to ask. The worst they can do is say no, and you can explain for those of you who maybe work at bank or credit unions, look, we'll do this for you the first time, but maybe not the third time, and those things. So next, you're going to walk through the difference between debit versus credit cards. Usually by this point, participants will understand the difference between debit and credit cards, but it's really still beneficial to dig into the topic because sometimes they don't know all of the differences. It can be fun to pull out some debit and credit cards in your wallet and ask participants which are the credit cards and which are the debit cards. So both have either a Visa or MasterCard logo or maybe Discover, 16 numbers, and expiration date. Debit cards available on all checking accounts as young as sometimes 13. Use money you have in your account. No interest payment because it's your money. If fraudulent activity occurs, there can be a wait period to get your money back. Usually require a PIN and does not build credit history. Credit cards, account holders have to be 21 or 18 with a cosigner or proof of income. You're borrowing from the future. You pay interest on an unpaid balance. It's easier to dispute fraudulent charges, can provide rewards programs, and builds credit history. And here is a slide with all that information. Then we're going to walk through them identity theft. So it's much easier to prevent identity theft than it is to recover from identity theft. So you can ask them, have you or anyone you know been a victim of identity theft or fraud? And you'll be really surprised to see how many even young students who've already been a victim of identity theft. More and more students are getting phone calls where they are getting phone calls early on that are fraudulent or are identity theft. Many of them have been victims of phishing. Many of them have already experienced fraud or identity theft in other ways. I had a student once who talked about the fact that somebody went dumpster diving in her house and found old pill bottles of hers and tried to get prescriptions filled. So they have already kind of experienced this even at a young age. But you can explain some of the common tactics to steal one's identity. Here are the different examples. They're all listed here in the presenter's guide, and they're also listed here on the slide, so you can use either or. And then here are some ideas on how to avoid being a victim of identity theft, such as shredding documents, not sharing important information, report fraud immediately, do not carry your social security card on you, watch your accounts for irregularities, and do not share passwords or PINs with anyone or making them easy to guess. So now you're going to walk through the identity theft activity. So you can either print it out or you can follow through with the slides. The students will already have copies. The key for the activity is provided on the following page. So here is the key, and this can be done either as a group or individually. And you can also ask them to if you don't have time, you could ask them to do this at home later on. So this is a copy of the activity. So here are the different scenarios. Here's what's the tactic that they're using and how could it be avoiding. And then here are the different slides that walk you through those things. So you get a call from the IRS. You can do it through the PowerPoint. So you don't even have to, if you don't have time to go through the whole activity, you can just use the PowerPoint. So you get a call from the IRS letting you know that there's been an issue with your tax return filing, but before they can discuss this matter, they need to verify your social security number and mailing address. What is that? And a lot of them have already experienced this. Basically let them know the IRS will never call them. That just isn't a thing. So what is that? Phishing. And you can kind of go through each of these and ask them, okay, what is that? Oh, that's skimming. Okay, what is that? That's pretexting. What is this? This is dumpster diving. Oh, theft and stealing. Changing your address. If you have another example, phishing is one that another example of phishing that I would add is when you get an email from your bank or credit union that looks just like your bank or credit union and they ask you to put your account information in the email. You can explain to them that that's something that your bank or credit union will not do. They'll always have them go through the official website. So explain to them that that's a way to avoid being a victim of another type of phishing. So here are ways to, again, here's a slide on all the things that we mentioned earlier, all the different ways to avoid being a victim. So those are all here. Then we'll go into the next part, which is the importance of maintaining a good relationship with your bank. Many times having a good bank account is the first financial relationship that we establish. It's important to maintain a good relationship with your bank. Failure to do so can affect one's ability to have an account in the future. Check Systems is a major verification company for one's banking history. You can get a copy of your Check Systems report if you have been denied a bank account in the last 60 days, your checks were stolen and used by an imposter, or you've not pulled a report within the last year. And then that's the slide here. And the importance of maintaining a good relationship and why it's important to maintain a good relationship. So then we are going to go into the conclusion of the day's activity. So one thing that you want to kind of talk to them about is the inflation and purchasing price. So even though savings accounts offer an interest return, it's important for participants to understand that a savings account is not ideal for long-term savings like retirement. I explain the concept of inflation. Inflation is covered in more detail in the investing session, but we kind of just want to go over it for it. So you can ask them, are there items that you've noticed in the recently where the prices significantly increased over the last few years? Many times participants can relate, such as movie tickets, candy bars, soda, etc. Sometimes students who are older will talk about gas or housing or those kinds of things. And then the final thing that you have is banking bingo. The banking bingo activity is a great way to review lessons, learn by reviewing the topics from the day. And it's also just really fun. I recommend playing bingo with your students, no matter what their age group is. Everybody loves bingo. Old, young, anyone in between. People love bingo. This is a great opportunity for you. If you have swag from your financial institution or candy that you want to bring, you can bring it as a prize. Totally fine. So let's go ahead and play bingo. So here's the key. You as the presenter will provide the definitions and questions, and the participants will answer from the 25 banking terms. Below are the terms. So you'll have them. This is what it looks like on their side on page 12. They will have to write the numbers 1 through 25 randomly in the box. Each number has a different referral. So ATM, withdrawal, savings account, credit union, bank, etc. So these are obviously really important for them to know, and you've gone over all of these things with them. So presumably they should know the definition for these things. So when you go over it, don't read ATM, ask them, okay, what is the process of taking money from your bank account? And you can either decide, if they're really young, you can say, okay, let someone answer it and say, okay, it's withdrawal, and allow them to know what it is. Or if they're a little older and you feel like they should know these things, don't say it. Okay, this is the process of taking money from your bank account. They should know that that's a withdrawal. This is the amount of money you have in your bank account. This is the money you add to your account, and so on and so forth. And then, you can make the determination early on. Let's say you have like 3 prizes. Okay, the first 3 winners of bingo will get bingo. So then you'll want to go over the takeaways with them. Takeaways of the lesson, which is knowing how to choose the right account, how to avoid fees, how to not be a victim of identity theft, and understanding interest. Just do it. Open a checking and savings account with a bank or credit union with no monthly account fees. Get a debit card, use it regularly, and never overdraw. By the time you graduate, have $500 in your savings for unexpected or large expenses. And then you can wrap it up with the last piece, which is, okay, do you know how to explain the difference between banks and credit unions? Do you know how to pick the right bank or credit union for you? Do you understand the benefits and services that your institutions provide? Do you know how to avoid fees? Do you know how to calculate the different types of interest? So that'll just kind of wrap through. The last bit there is a survey. The retrospective survey is designed to help make sure that we are doing a good job at meeting the needs of the students and meeting the goals. So this is in the student guide. There's a loose leaf page in there. So just set aside a couple minutes to administer the survey. And this is a suggested script, and you can either mail or drop off completed surveys, or you can scan them and email them to me at your local affiliate office. So that would be to me. You can email them to me or however you'd like to go over those. And then the book is for the students to take home. There's activities in here for them to use. And then there are notes on all the things that you've covered with them as well. So things that you have talked about with them, they're all in this book that they can go ahead and take home with them. So I want to take a quick minute to now show you all some tools that we have, some additional tools that we have for you in going over the banking lesson. So I think I'm probably got signed out. Yeah, okay. That'll sign you out if you're not active for a certain amount of time. So if you click again on this blue volunteer box and we click on presenter tutorials, this is some really great self-guided lessons that you can use to help guide you through how to teach the banking class. So additional information. So you have an introduction to the banking course. You have this timeline. Here's a little video on where your audience is at. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Hi, I'm Penny. I'm going to give you an idea of where high school students and young adults are at when it comes to banking. Of course, these are just generalities. Don't hesitate to do a quick poll with a show of hands to ask your audience about their familiarity with banking. Many of your participants already have savings accounts, and some have checking accounts. Some may not know what type of bank accounts they have, and if it is held at a bank or credit union. Gone are the days of checks for your audience. Many are using a debit card either tied to their own account or a parent's. Don't be surprised if you hear stories of how they may have already gotten into trouble and experienced overdraft fees. Just imagine how much their knowledge will increase after meeting you. Have fun teaching your financial foundations course.
So that's just a little bit of a kind of where your audience is at, and then it walks through all the different overviews, activities, and appendices, and all the different activities. So let's go ahead and watch one of these videos.
Now we're going to walk through the different appendices and activities available for you with this course. These appendices and activities can be found in the resource guide that the students have. Now, the difference between an appendix and an activity is that the appendix is really intended to be for the students to utilize later on beyond the classroom, whereas the activities are meant to engage the students while you're in the classroom. The appendices offered with the banking course include choosing a bank or credit union, which is a worksheet that participants can walk through which institution would be best for them, as well as a bank account review, which gets more specific into what bank account actually would be best for their situation. The activities that are offered with banking include one about Monica and Sarah and their very different situations and how they can become overcome with the banking fees. There's banking bingo, which everybody loves to play banking bingo. I've actually had teachers complain if volunteers don't, so I definitely recommend you play banking bingo at the end. As well as there's an identity theft activity, which walks through the different forms of identity theft that people are become predatory to. So don't feel like you have to get to every single activity. Sometimes time just does not allow for it. So feel free to make this your own, use what's most engaging to you, and the teachers even have an opportunity that beyond the classroom after you've left, they can incorporate the activity.
So that's just a little bit about the different activities and appendices, and then it walks through those and how to go through them. These are the different resources that are available for you, and then a little quiz. And then there's actually videos of volunteers in the classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and actually show you a little bit of this video, which there's some of this video that I really, really like to use because she does a great job of telling a personal story and why money was important to her, and then also does a great job of reading off the objectives and those. So I'm going to go ahead and play that part.
Have money so you can have freedom. If you don't have money, then you don't have choices. You have to either figure out, I'm going to live with my parents, or maybe I have to live with roommates, and this isn't really what I want to do. If you have the money and you can afford your own place or you can get your own car, those things start happening, okay? So I learned about money at a really early age, okay? Typical kid, getting ready to go to college, started my first year in school. My father died, I was like 17 years old. And we didn't have any more money. There was no insurance, no pension, no nothing. And all of a sudden I went from having money to not having money. And, you think your parents are always really, really smart, and sometimes they don't answer questions for you, and you think they're doing it because, it's for your own good. You don't want, they don't want to tell you. Well, it turned out my mother was really, really naive. My mother had never paid a bill in her life. My mother didn't know how to write a check. My father controlled all the money, but I didn't know anything about that because it was never talked about in my house. And so all of a sudden I found out we had no money, no way to pay the bills. My mother had never worked in her life. I had to leave school and get a couple of jobs, start paying, figure out how to help pay the family bills and get us to stay in our house. So I learned the hard way about money. So I went out, but I liked having my own money. It made sense to me, and it gave me freedom, and it gave me choices. So that's what's really important. You're all at an age right now. You're going to start going to colleges. You're going to start making choices for yourself. But one of the biggest relationships you're ever going to have in your life is how you deal with your own money. And other than your family, it's the relationship that you're going to have for the rest of your life. So you can be really foolish with your money, or you can be really smart with your money. And you don't need a lot of money to be smart and get the things you want. If you know what you want, you can figure it out. And I know that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be talking about credit. You're going to be talking about budgeting. So all of these things are really, really important when managing your money. So today we are going to talk, though, about banking, because banking is a real central issue in people's lives when it comes to money. And our objectives are to look at the differences between banks and credit unions, how to choose the right bank for you, benefits and services that you can get from your bank, what kind of fees are going to be involved, and different types of accounts.
So that is a great example of a presenter making it personal, talking about her personal experience with money and banking, kind of making some examples for that high school classroom that was appropriate. It was a senior group of high schools who were moving on to, a lot of them moving on to college the next year, talking about that with a lot of them, and then going on and reading off the objectives. So now I just want to leave some time here at the end. We have some time, so I would love to open this up to you all to ask questions about the banking lesson and how any questions that have come up in this and questions that you have. So I'm going to unmute everybody. Everyone's unmuted now. And so does anyone have any questions about anything that we've gone over?
Yeah, I do.
And can you just say your name before?
I'm Pam Johnson.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hi, I came in at the very end there. So I don't think I introduced myself. You mentioned at the very beginning there, you were talking about 3 ways that you brought the PowerPoint with you.
Yes.
One, you emailed yourself. The second one, you emailed the teacher. And I didn't get the third one.
The third one is I bring it on a flash drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, bring it on a flash drive, email it to myself, email it to the teacher, and actually there's the fourth thing, which I kind of mentioned it, but I didn't put it in that thing, which I actually print a notes view as well. So I go to print, layout, notes view, and this way I have all the notes here with me. So that way, in case the teacher, maybe the setup doesn't allow for you to do a presenter's view, you have the notes there with you. So I really also like to print a copy for myself beforehand and print myself a notes view copy. I think this is really, really helpful to have. Great question. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any other questions? Comments? All right. Well,
very thorough. Nice job.
thank you. Yeah. One thing I just kind of want to stress to all of you is that, the curriculum, again, we have what we call an 80-20 rule. 80% of the curriculum should be as we've packaged it and presented it. 20% can be you adding your own flair, adding personal stories. So I really like to print my presenter's guide. And, when I like to put in here stories, okay, here in this section about fishing, tell a story about fishing, at University of Oregon. And I have a story about a time that I got emailed from University of Oregon asking me to put my username and password in the email, and it turned out it was a scam. And I learned that the hard way. And, you can write times to put your own personal stories, and any opportunity you can use to gauge your audience is a great opportunity to use. So in the beginning, there's some of those questions like, what is the difference between these two things? Or, where do you think, talk to me about what banking is. And those are all opportunities for you to gauge your audience. So, okay, is this, because you'll notice not only are the institutions that we work with different. So obviously a group of high school students is going to be different than a group of adults who are incarcerated or transitioning from homelessness. But also even the high schools we work at are different. We did some focus groups this year at 4 drastically different high schools, and students at alternative schools want to learn about and have different examples than students at non-alternative schools. And students on the west side of Portland are in different situations than students on the east side of Portland. And I just want you to think about that as you're going into the classroom. A good way to gauge this, and it doesn't always tell you, but a good way, when you click on, let's go to the dashboard here, and let's go ahead and just click on all the opportunities. When you're looking at a class, for example, there is a class at Glencoe High School, and you'll see here there's no low income percentage, which means it's under 50% low income. But let's go ahead and take a look at this Pivot Job Corps Center. This is 100% low income. So they're going to have different examples. They're going to be different kinds of students, and the examples that you're going to give them are going to be different. And it's just a good way, you don't necessarily need to make assumptions about a student situation based upon where you're teaching, but ask them to share. And ask those questions to gauge what their experience is at and where their level is at. And that can help you really provide them a holistic experience that is meaningful to where they're at in their life. And that even if you don't have the same lived experience as these students, you can still provide them with examples that are appropriate for their lived experience. So I hope that makes sense to you all as you're kind of utilizing this curriculum in drastically different classrooms. And you'll see, when you shadow, and I hope you all know that you can all shadow, and you can shadow as many times as you'd like. Shadowing is a great way to find out about how the other volunteers are doing this. So let's go ahead and just take a look at some shadowing opportunities that are coming up over the next couple of months. You can go into these classes and shadow. There is a banking class at Pivot Job Corps Center that you can go and shadow, for example, and see how this volunteer teaches this class and how they do it. There is a banking class at, this is a little bit far away, but for anyone that's in the Bend area, in Deer Ridge Correctional Institution. And you can shadow other classes as well. There's a credit class at some that are close. Sorry, I picked everywhere, so this is kind of showing everything. But there's lots of opportunities to shadow that you can kind of see. So you can look and see, okay, let me go shadow this banking class at Miller Education Center. What is this like, and how does it differ from this budgeting class at Bethlehem and Homeless Shelter or Clackamas Community College, and how these different institutions we work at are going to be different, and how the students and the lived experience of the participants is going to mean that you're going to give them different types of examples. So I hope that makes sense. And if anyone has any questions about that or anything else, again, you have another couple of minutes to ask any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time today. And if anything else comes up, please feel free to email me.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. See,
Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. I hope you all have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.